Hi.
Hi, Anna.
Hey,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Congratulations on season two of Flack.
Thank you.
So first off, your character Robin is facing some big personal dilemmas at the
Mhm.
start of the season. Why don't you take us through a little bit of what she's grappling with and how she's coping this season?
Right. Well, to not spoil for people who haven't seen season one yet, and please hurry up and do that, because season two drops soon. Um, she has kind of burnt a lot of bridges in both her personal and professional life at the end of season one, and had some kind of large fireworks in that arena that she's trying very hard and very earnestly at the beginning of season two to regain trust and rebuild some of these relationships. But she is ultimately someone with mental health issues and substance abuse issues, and she actually hasn't dealt with any of her own stuff. She's just kind of putting band-aids over it. And I think, as you know, most people know, that doesn't really work in the long term. She's sort of, finding temporary solutions to large, like massive problems in her own life, and eventually the dam bursts.
So, hi, Anna. Nice to see you.
Hi.
Hi, my question for you is, in what ways do you think women especially can relate to your character? Because you said, she puts band-aids on a lot of things, and I think that's something a lot of us can relate to.
Mhm.
So what other ways do you think we could all relate?
Well, look, I think there's a lot of expectation on women to kind of present as if we can do it all, and to, or at least pretend that we can. And I'm not sure who decided or when that we're all supposed to look perfect while pretending we can do absolutely everything with no help. But it's a lie, and not a cute one, and doesn't do us any good. And I think for Robin, there's obviously the kind of, that is then taken to a very literal extent, where she then works in a business where it's all about covering up things and making it look pretty on the outside, when underneath there's an insane amount of turmoil and darkness. And I mean, for me as a woman watching entertainment, I want to watch things with flawed, complicated, smart, interesting female protagonists. And I feel like that's the sort of entertainment that I gravitate towards, both sort of to do and to watch. And it's because I think there's a lot to do with being female and trying to maintain your perfect career and perfect home life, that I think is really relatable. By getting to see that, how, like, all the beneath the surface, what's actually going on. I like the realness of it. I think other women do too.
Yes, definitely.
So the series seems to be a lot of fun to watch, certainly, but also I imagine it was a lot of fun to film for you. Talk a little bit about, was there a moment in the season that really sort of summed up the experience for you of working on this show?
I mean, it's so hard to kind of pick one moment. Also, there's so much of what we do on this show, especially this season for Robin, that is so deeply dark, and kind of ugly in many ways, that it sounds weird to say, oh, it was amazing, we all did this really like heavy, gnarly scene today, but one of the things that makes you sound weird when you're like, I had the best day at the office, you know what I mean? What is really beautiful and really special about the whole team, but particularly the beautiful female ensemble that I'm at the center of, is that we all are such a close, creative, but also in real life friend group, and the level of support and safety and trust that we all have when each other's characters are having to go into the dark places, that it sounds weird to say that's fun, but it is, because you feel completely safe and completely protected. And also, that isn't the case on every single set. Sometimes you just don't have those connections with people, and we're able to do really weird stuff and gnarly, go to the dark places, because we're all a tight little family behind the scenes. And I don't know, I mean, it's hard to kind of distill it down to one moment, but you know, scenes where we're all butting heads and things are terrible and, you know, chaos is kicking off. And then, you know, the group cuddle afterwards where everyone's kind of wiping each other's tears and you know, it's, I don't know, we're in the trenches together. And that was a daily thing. And also, you know, we're a show that has a very large scale palette, as far as it's supposed to be very high-end clients and expensive lifestyles in a huge city, and we're quite a small show, so realistically we could have used with probably an extra few days at every location. So there's also the thing of always kind of being under the gun for time. But again, our crew was equally wonderful, and everyone hustles as hard as they can, and you kind of get to the end of it and you're just like, phew, we got through it. But but that to us all felt very happy. I know that sounds weird if you're not if you're not part of it. Like,
yeah,
there's really gnarly days when you know, when the people around you really prove that they've all got each other's backs. Those are really beautiful, and there was a lot of those.
And how did you get into character, especially for filming some of those darker scenes? Did you have a specific thing that you did?
I mean, one of the things with really well-written material is that it is there for you on the page, and the evolution of the character into those dark places, it's not just randomly, you know, this one episode we kind of go there. It's all been building towards there. So creatively, it's all sort of mapped out in my head that way, as far as, and for all of us behind the scenes, sort of figuring out where the sort of crucial bits of Robin's journey are and where she's up to in her kind of trajectory of breakdown. So it's, I don't know, but I'm also always drawn towards quite dark, like vaguely torturous material. So that's sort of my comfort zone. So it feels like a pretty normal day at the office to me.
The show is something of a family affair for you. You got to be directed by this great director named Stephen Moyer.
Yeah, he's all right.
What was it like working under him on the show and getting the direction? And is there a shorthand you have? Obviously, been on shows with him before, but talk a little bit about that experience and how it's different and how it's.
Well, obviously we met as actors and spent the first several seasons of True Blood working only together, really, all day, every day. And then he started directing some of the episodes on True Blood. And that just felt like a very seamless transition for me and for him and for our creative collective there. And he's directed me in what was his feature debut as well. And we just have a level of trust and connection and shorthand where he doesn't have to say much, because he knows exactly how to get me into the place I need to be for any given moment. You know, it's you just, you know, I've worked with some extraordinarily gifted directors, and he is an incredibly gifted director, but I also have the, you know, absolute perk of him just knowing me better than anyone else on the planet, and knowing that he can, you know, come in and whisper like two tiny things, and it's like little minutia adjustments, you know, because that's us in real life. Mm. It's a real luxury, especially when it's dark, twisty material and you're always running out of time. You know. And then also that thing that as an actor, when you're going to quite dark places emotionally, that you feel quite vulnerable, and it's hard to gauge whether or not, we actually nailed that. Did we get that? Do I need another take? And having someone who you completely implicitly trust to be like, no, we got it. We can move on. I know you can do this for the next 7 hours, but, and having that trust to be like, okay, cool. Next, and that's a great thing to have.
And we have seen you basically grow up on the screen. How does it feel knowing that you have your fans from back from Fly Away Home, and now they're watching you grown up playing Robin and a completely different character?
I mean, I find it, sometimes it makes me feel incredibly old from people who are obviously younger than me, but are adults. Like, Fly Away Home was my childhood. I'm like, that's, incredibly flattering, but it's just kind of funny. But also, I don't really sort of have a self-awareness of anything, of what I have no objectivity on it, because this is the only life I've ever known. I know it's a very peculiar life, but I have nothing to compare it to. I'm just really, really privileged and really grateful that I stumbled into the thing that it turns out I think is my calling, and that I've had the opportunity to get to continue to grow and learn and stretch as an artist, and move into different arenas of our field, with producing, and eventually I want to direct, and I feel so lucky. It's a real privilege.
What's one thing about Robin that you wish the audience really understood that maybe isn't obvious? Is there something there that you really want to try to get across to the acting that maybe the audiences might miss?
One of the things that I think sometimes gets missed is when she's making quite harsh decisions, that it doesn't necessarily come from a terrible place. Even when she's doing things that are very morally ambiguous, she is a product of a very dysfunctional upbringing with a mentally unwell mother who had a lot of substance issues, an absent father. She was sort of assumed the maternal role with relation to her little sister. And what looks like her just kind of lying and being slippery is really just a coping mechanism of living in a child in such an unstable household, where you kind of have to keep the peace all the time, learning how to, in an emotionally imbalanced environment, how to not upset people, how to keep, or if if she tells her mother something that's going to send her off the deep end, that's terrible. So sometimes when she withholds information, she thinks it's for their good, and other people go, mm-mm. And it backfires catastrophically. But it doesn't actually come from a place of trying to ruin people's lives. She's just sort of coping with the world as she learned from a very young age to cope with it. And it just doesn't necessarily, intention versus impact. And, and hopefully this, I think even last season, you see the sort of the complications in her life, but this season we go further into her sort of backstory, and that thing of when you meet someone's parents, you're like, wow, that explains a lot about you. Martha Plimpton plays my mom this season, and when you see that dynamic, and her just in this whole other phase of her life, it you learn a lot about how she became the person she is.
Well, I have to say, I'm really excited to see that, because, we love Robin and she's just an incredible character. I know we have season 2 coming up, but as the show goes on, how do you want to see Robin evolve?
We've all had, behind the scenes chats about that. As of right now, there's no official word on season 3 or subsequent seasons. So there's not much I can, say about that at this exact juncture, but rest assured, if we are lucky enough to get to continue to explore this crazy, weird, wonderful world of Flack, there is so much potential for where all of these characters could go. Season 2 ends in a very very startling way, and which I obviously am not going to spoil, that really does open up even more possibilities for what the world of Black would look like season 3.
So you got to work with Martha Plimpton. What was that experience like for you as an actor? And what like, is there a moment that you'll take away of that Martha moment on the show?
I mean, Martha's just a force of nature. I mean, let's get out of the way the fact that biologically she's not old enough to actually be my mother. So we had to kind of like age her a little bit. And also in the flashbacks to that stuff, I'm a bit younger as well. You know what I mean? Like, so we fudged it. And first of all, I always admire people who don't like have a vanity issue with, like, technically I couldn't be your mom at all, but she's such a phenomenal actress. And I grew up like with her as, you know, one of my sort of acting idols and sort of pop culture idols. And she just brings everything. There's no holding back, or, you know, we only had her on set really for a few days, and I'd be hard pressed to say which was my favorite moment, but the characters have such a complex and dysfunctional relationship, and she just has no fear about going to the really like darkest, most unflattering places. And I personally am also one of those people that likes to go there when it's called for. And it's just really fun getting to play with someone who just, you know, keeps hitting the ball back in a incredibly amazing but different way and keeps you on your toes. And just, you know, it's always fun to work with people who you feel like you're being brought, you know, up. And, you know, with especially on episodic things where obviously we all get tired. So when you have new cast members who come in to inject a different energy, there's also that thing of being able to kind of feed off that. And she's extraordinary, and she's amazing in this role.
And
We were very lucky.
that is our time. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
guys.